For 4 long years since Valorant's release, we've all been wondering why Asia Pacific teams could never win a VCT Championship. Asian teams have gotten close so many times, and always looked extremely dominant up until the final moments of every tournament, where they ultimately fall short. But in the wake of world-class teams like PaperX or DRX, a new competitor rose up this year and showed us a level of play from the region that had never been seen before. Gen.G were the ones who finally found that winning formula, and we're going to break down exactly how they took Asian Valorant to a whole new level. In this 2-part series, we're going to look at important moments from all 5 maps of Gen.G's grand final against Team Heretics, as well as some stats that show Gen.G's evolving playstyle. We'll be highlighting all the details and what makes Gen.G such an elite team, but also break down some of their weaknesses, which a very talented Team Heretics were able to take advantage of. This is how Gen.G won Asian Valorant their very first VCT Championship. Thanks to Exit Lag for sponsoring this video. If you experience issues with high ping or general performance when playing Valorant, Exit Lag could be the solution for you. Exit Lag is a performance optimization software that helps you diagnose common problems with your gaming experience and solve them. They've always been able to improve your network routing, which can help lower your ping. But now they've enhanced that technology by using AI to assist real-time routing and further optimize the routes that your packets take to the game's servers. By using their dynamic stabilizer technology, you're able to send packets in parallel through multiple routes, which ensures faster and fail-proof packet delivery. You can even monitor the quality of your connection through the diagnostic center in the software, which allows you to track the details regarding the performance of your connection. Getting set up is super easy. Just visit the link in the description, sign up, and download the client. And when you open up the client, you'll see a huge list of games that they support. Make sure that the servers you select are the same ones that you want to play on in Valorant, and that's it. Thanks again to Exit Lag for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to Gen.G's historical performance at Masters Shanghai. Gen.G's playstyle truly represents Asian Valorant to the fullest, and this becomes apparent from the very first round of the series. Gen.G start Breeze on defense and open with a double walk push down mid. Heretics intend to keep this round simple with a 5-man execute out of A main, but because Gen.G already have great control of the fastest rotation path through double doors, there are immediately 4 players ready on A to fight back. Heretics barely have any space to fight from as they're trapped behind Pyramid and Brick, and Gen.G completely wipe them out before they can even plant the bomb. This setup that Gen.G are running ensures that they can take good fights on both sides of the map, and this is a signature of the aggressive Asian Valorant style. This is exactly the type of setup we've seen from their regional rivals PaperX, like in this example on Breeze, where PaperX prepares for a huge fight in A main, but have EuroTP and Omenalt ready to rotate and cover the B rush. The Asian Valorant style emphasizes team fighting and creating as many skirmishes as possible throughout the course of a round, rather than playing spike objectives like post plants or retakes, which is something other regions prioritize a bit more. When we look at the stats, Asian teams win the largest proportion of their rounds just by killing everyone. I unfortunately don't have data from Shanghai, but this data from Madrid shows that PaperX and Gen.G proportionally won way more rounds than every other team at the event from simply killing enemies. Gen.G seriously matched that same energy that PaperX have always manifested, but they are just a bit more balanced in their approach and are unique in their own way, which we'll continue to elaborate on in this analysis. Round 2 is an anti-eco for Gen.G, and there are no major surprises, but I just want to point out how a top team actually strategizes on their anti-ecos. Gen.G are giving up complete control of mid and playing long angles deep onto sites. This ensures that they can use their gun advantage on a long map like Breeze, and Heretics are never going to have the chance to sneak up anywhere without taking a long-range duel against multiple players. Even if Heretics win a couple of fights with their classics, there are no good opportunities to go run and pick up those guns because they're going to be so far away. But there's even more going on here that we'll come back to in a second. The first gun round of the game is always a very important round because it gives a chance for one team to snowball the rest of the half. A standard practice in Valorant today is to play out a bonus in round 3. However, Gen.G are able to buy strong into this round and can even afford an op because they intentionally pre-plan their economy from the very first round. In round 1, they buy 2 sheriffs. Like we mentioned, Gen.G is planning to fight aggressively for both sites because that's their style. This means that if they are successful and win the round, Heretics will never have had the chance to plant the bomb, and this makes a huge difference during the anti-eco because it means that Heretics cannot afford light shields, nor can they buy ghosts. And remember that the Sheriff minimum body shot damage is 50 at the maximum range cutoff. Gen.G are able to take 2 Sheriffs into round 2, and then tactically set up to ensure every single fight is taken on a long angle to maximize that benefit. Now, Gen.G wins their eco, and since Lakia played Sheriff and saved his armor, he has enough money to buy texture and op. So everything is led up to round 3, where Gen.G are playing explicitly to try and snowball the rest of the half. Heretics decide to play a slower round with 3 players taking control of B main, while Cypher and Viper are maintaining control of the other side. Meteor starts in mid and TPs to B immediately when the Sky Flash gets info on him. In B main, Munchkin draws attention towards the left, but he doesn't instantly molly or smoke. Heretics didn't force out any utility yet, so they feel like they need to keep peeking, but Meteor is able to punish the dry swing from Woot. Then the smoke comes up to prevent Heretics from getting anything out of that death, and at the same time, Heretics discover the op on the other side of the map. Gen.G are so good at finding these very small peak timings and have the aim required to capitalize on every opportunity. Gen.G have successfully executed their strategy that was meticulously planned from round 1. It feels like this game just started, but Heretics are already in a map losing situation. Gen.G were so good at building this type of momentum from the start of their pistol rounds that they actually won the first 4 rounds of every single map in this series except for Lotus, and won 8 out of 10 total pistol rounds against Team Heretics. Their early game on Breeze ultimately snowballs into an insurmountable lead at the half, which no team at this level has ever been able to come back from. When they swap to attack, Gen.G are looking to end the map right away and run an innovative strategy which is only possible because of their team comp. They start with 1 player holding the mid push and 1 player holding the B push, while their strong side moves to take control of A main. They kill the Cypher Cam, and this confirms complete control of A main. Now Gen.G immediately moves back towards B, while Munchkin goes mid and sets up a Viper wall, which is usually used in an A split. Lakia also throws a Silva Dart onto A from B, and these actions paired with that earlier A main control completely tricks Heretics, who leave B site open. Munchkin even gets a kill while faking. Gen.G have a lot more flexibility on attack compared to Heretics because they're running this double controller comp, meaning that Astra can still put up smokes for the main execute even if the wall is committed elsewhere. Heretics are so out of position that they can't even set up for a retake, and Munchkin continues to wreak havoc on the lurk, while Heretics are still trying to get into position, and the round is basically over before Heretics can make a real play together. It's almost time to move on to map 2, but Heretics are able to build up a bit of confidence back starting with this eco round. One thing I noticed about Gen.G is that they rarely ever buy Spectres or Stingers, and a lot of players are stuck on half armor or pistols. Even in this case, when Gen.G have 11 rounds, they still go for a 3 rifle 2 pistol setup, when they could have bought 2 more guns. And this type of buy is much harder to make work on attack than it is on defense. This means that Gen.G are particularly vulnerable to force buys, which Heretics have to do in this round anyway if they want a chance back in the game. You can see that Charon loses a 1v1 to a Stinger in mid with his Sheriff, and if he had a Spectre, this round probably would have turned out completely different. It's hard to punish high mobility guns when you have Guardians and pistols, so this is an area where teams could potentially take advantage of against Gen.G, especially with Neon being reintroduced into the meta. Heretics win their force buy and were able to keep the map alive, but the final nail in the coffin happens on round 16. Which showcases one of the areas where Gen.G have been able to surpass their regional rivals. Gen.G decides to go for a straightforward execute on A, using their Yoru ult to entry. Woot is cleared out of his aggressive opping angle, and Heretics have now backed off to find a different timing to try and fight Gen.G. Usually, you would be able to punish attackers once the Viper wall comes down, but because Gen.G have 2 controllers who can cycle their smokes, Gen.G have some more time to work with. Now, Gen.G don't have any good timings to play aggressively, and just have to wait until Heretics come to them. Post plants like this are historically a terrible scenario for Asian teams. This is a graph of post plant success rates from Masters and Champions last year. Does something look interesting to you? When you take a closer look, it's the Asian teams that are relatively much worse at post plants than every other region in the world. Post plants just don't mesh well with that Asian playstyle, and this is exactly why these teams tend to end rounds before they even get to this point. However, in this round, Gen.G actually look like they have decent control of the post plant. Charon is setting up for a lurk with the stars on the bomb, while Munchkin backs off to line up a molly. Meteor is still playing on site to look for a trade down, but is patiently waiting for his opportunity so more time gets stalled off the clock. He ultimately finds 2 round-ending kills, but it feels like Gen.G would have won this round regardless, and this is a massive improvement from how their region played post-plants last year. It gets really interesting when we look at post-plant stats from Masters Madrid, because even though Gen.G's style naturally results in less post-plants, they were a much better team at post-plants than their entire region last year. This is an area where Gen.G were really able to level up, because you can see that Paper X still had one of the lowest post-plant success rates at Madrid, while Gen.G were one of the best teams in the post at that tournament. But it's still hard to swap between these two styles, and we'll see some of that come into play later on. Map 1 is done and dusted, and Gen.G showed that they can basically win an entire map off of momentum alone. Moving on to map 2 on Icebox, we can see that both teams have identical comps except for the secondary initiator. We'll get to see the different trade-offs between Gecko and Sova and how each team works slightly differently as a result. Just like last game, Gen.G have one goal every single round, and it's to make Heretics fight for everything and never give anything away for free. Right out of the gate, 3 Gen.G players are looking for a fight in B long. It's a bit psychotic how the KO knife pings 3 players, but Gen.G don't care at all and force the fight anyway. They lose the trade down as expected because it's not really a great fight, but this decisiveness makes Heretics suspicious of continuing forward and hold for a bit longer. Benji Fishy's Killjoy turret shoots at somebody mid, and this gives Heretics the idea that someone might have rotated towards B. On top of that, we start to see some of the comp differences come into play because planting B without a Gecko is seriously a miserable experience, so Heretics are going to be a bit more reluctant to go B. We see Heretics start to move back towards A, but Munchkin is somehow reading this perfectly and rotates right with Heretics. Charon simultaneously pushes to get info that confirms that Heretics will be hitting A, which not only gives him a chance to make the fight in time, but also mentally prepares Meteor and Munchkin for the execute, which honestly makes a huge difference. Now, when Heretics start the hit, they instantly lose drone to KO knife, and Woot has to wait before dashing out. Heretics lose this good timing to push past the Viper wall, and remember that this buys even more time for Charon to make it over. Now that Woot can dash again, they push through, but the mollies are now up and Heretics are clumped together pushing through the wall, giving Meteor a good fight. Watch this elite coordination where Munchkin holds the smoke towards screens, and this job is smoothly transitioned to Charon as he gets the site, so Munchkin can then go up and pick up Meteor's position. Then after Munchkin dies, Charon is perfectly set up to win the final 1v1, and another big round is won for Gen.G. Heretics were never able to plant the bomb, so they have to full save in the next round, but Gen.G aren't necessarily in that same econ position as last game. They never saved their pistols like they did on Breeze, and actually almost lost their anti-eco, which came down to a 1v2 from Texture. Because of this, Gen.G decides to play out a very normal bonus round with 3 sheriffs, 1 saved guardian, and a hero rifle bought by Texture. They explicitly set up to play a fight in A main with both their rifles, and even though the initial peek fails, Texture peeks again and gets a massive opening kill onto Woot, then gives a rifle away to Munchkin, who still has 100 HP. Heretics decides to move back towards B, and both teams lose 1 more player before Heretics get to site. Now we're going to see that Gecko difference come into play a little bit, as Patty Tech has to put himself in a terrible position to plant the bomb. This results in another 3rd round win for Gen.G, which leads to another anti-eco round that goes relatively smoothly. Gen.G are able to start map 2 with a 4-0 lead again, but Heretics are slowly understanding Gen.G's aggressive playstyle and what they need to do to beat it. Gen.G are always looking to create those teamfights and care very little about playing retake. So far, Heretics have generally been avoidant of these fights, but now they're realizing that a lot of these fights are not necessarily great choices from Gen.G like we saw during Pistol Round. They're just taking them so decisively that you're led to believe they favor Gen.G, but in a lot of these situations, winning any of these fights means that Heretics have a wide open round. So Heretics start to lean into these fights way more than they were before. In round 5, Gen.G set up another push through A main with Texture's op. His entire team is trusting the control that he's holding and already committing rotates towards B. But instead of just playing for a deep angle and valuable information, Texture continues to push up belt and gets into a very dangerous spot, and the round completely falls apart when Texture dies because they lose all their good information, causing everybody on Gen.G to lose direction in the round. Now Meteor takes a risk himself to get some info into B main and is punished for making a play alone. What was initially a good call to stack B with a decent retake setup on A results in a thrown round because of Gen.G's tendencies to overfight and avoid retake situations. This is another thing to point out, as Gen.G's Gecko pick has strong retake potential, but this will always be underused by Gen.G because of their style to force fights before rounds ever get to that point. Now we're going to see this pattern happen over and over for a couple of rounds. Texture already gets an opening kill on A in round 6, but then Munchkin decides to flash peek alone and immediately gives back the advantage. Gen.G continue to play in these committed spots on site, as you can see Texture is playing near Gen without a dash. Heretics commit to the execute with KO ult, kill everyone on Gen.G on A, and the round is completely over again before Heretics even plant the bomb. In round 7, Gen.G are again fully committed to fighting past their own Viper wall, which is barely getting them any value at this point. They lose another team fight before the spike is ever a concern, and the round is over again for Gen.G. You think these fights are bad for Heretics because they're running into 4 people, but the way that Gen.G are playing these fights and the positions they're committing to are very risky and leverage none of their utility. A very mechanically strong team like Heretics will be able to take full advantage of mispositioning, and we'll see it again in round 8, where Texture takes a dry op peek into A main and gets dropped instantly. Lakia and Munchkin stay committed past the wall and past the Killjoy Molly again. They don't die early in this round because they back off before Heretics decides to hit the site, but it still shows some inconsistencies in their game plan. The thing about Gen.G is they won't back down, and they just keep trying different ways to fight A main rather than giving it up. This next round is just proof of how insane Texture is individually, because he just makes it work with raw skill. Gen.G definitely rely on these solo plays to win rounds, but one thing that sets them apart is that they know how to capitalize on these moments by using them to create tactical advantages in future rounds. And let me explain what I mean. Heretics more than anyone know that was not a good play and a very frustrating round to lose. They feel like they're giving Gen.G way too much respect and allowing them to take all the peaks they want, so they're definitely thinking of challenging A main more aggressively. But in the next round, Texture buys an op and plays a passive angle, which punishes Heretics for trying to take space more aggressively. This shuts them down completely, and Texture wins another round all by himself, but that's not even the end of his impact. Now Heretics are aware of the op, so they're much more cautious peeking into A main. Gen.G adjusts to this in 2 ways. The first is to send Texture to op B, but the second is much more interesting. Now the other 4 players on Gen.G are set up to push into A main because they know that Heretics are going to be way more cautious than before. This means they're probably going to let them take a lot more free space. Heretics throw a KO knife to get info on the push, which only tags 1 player. They also use the Sova Dart, but this gets shot down instantly. But take a look at where Munchkin throws his own KO knife. Obviously this does nothing for him because it only scans where they've pushed past, but this is all a 400 IQ bait to make Heretics think Gen.G are playing a passive setup. When Gen.G aggressively push A main, they always throw a much deeper knife to actually help them take the fight. Here's a clip from Gen.G against 100 Thieves, where Gen.G are in a passive setup and throw that exact same knife that Munchkin is now using to fake the idea of a passive setup. Heretics are lulled into a false sense of security and don't use any more utility to clear out A main. They are completely caught off guard when Gen.G are pushed up and another round is won, all stemming from that initial crazy solo play from Texture. This is what I mean when I say Gen.G know how to factor that momentum into their own strategies. But what happens when Gen.G suddenly lose their momentum? Early in the second half, Gen.G are already up 9 rounds to 6. They find themselves in a 5v3 post plant against a Heretics light buy, and it already feels like the map and now the series is going to snowball out of control. I just praised Gen.G for their post plants and being able to play out more passive setups when needed. It kind of looks like they're going to do that now, but suddenly they start getting picked off one by one. And before you know it, Gen.G are in a 2v2 and are actually at a disadvantage because Heretics are already pushed up yellow. This ultimately results in Gen.G throwing a massive round, which could have propelled them directly to the championship. Everybody on Gen.G knew that they blew it, but this round is just a perfect example of why it's so hard to swap between an aggressive style and a passive style in the middle of a match. The reason they got in this position to begin with is because the entire team couldn't get on the same page and kept desyncing their peaks, all while the bomb was never even tapped. Gen.G are undeniably better at post plants than their regional rivals, but in this case, they just exhibited some of the same problems that all Asian teams have. This round not only convinced Heretics that Gen.G suck at post plants, but helped Gen.G convince themselves of it, and this completely breaks them apart. Gen.G go on a 6-round losing streak from this point forward, 5 of which were extremely winnable post plant situations. As we go over each of these rounds, think about Gen.G's setups. Are they trying to find a timing to fight together, or are they all playing the bomb? You'll probably notice that it's often neither. In round 17, Gen.G go for a simple A hit, and this results in a 4v4 post plant situation. Texture attempts an early play by himself and gets punished. Meteor does the same thing, and again, take note that the bomb has not even been tapped yet. Both teams trade back and forth, and Heretics win the retake up 2 players. This could have easily been much closer if Texture and Meteor didn't throw their lives away too early. In round 19, Gen.G are able to take control of A in a 3v2 with Meteor on the flank. Heretics are just getting more and more comfortable waiting for retakes, and you can see why when Meteor walks straight into Rien's crosshair before the bomb is even planted. Keep in mind, no player is in danger planting because Lakia is using Wingman to plant the bomb in the first place. Munchkin was completely committed to this dangerous angle the entire time, and he gets punished as expected. It's not hard to imagine a significantly better team play made during this round. Next, we've got a full 5v5 retake in round 20 with 2 Viper pits up. I think it's fair to say that losing control of yellow is very bad for Gen.G here, but Texture is still taking that peak all by himself, while the rest of Gen.G are just sitting around. Remember that this was a 5v5 retake, but somehow Gen.G didn't manage to kill a single player on Heretics and lose another retake. In round 21, Gen.G works a B split, but you can tell that they've lost complete faith in playing any real post plant. The entire team is playing extremely aggressive and forcing fights onto site, trying to basically end the round before it even gets to a real post plant. This just reeks of desperation, and Heretics are still prepared for this type of play as they have been for many rounds. Heretics are able to punish that aggression, and losing the exact same way over and over already sucks, but Munchkin loses the 1v2 clutch by mere milliseconds, and I don't think any team's mental can be that strong. Finally, on round 22, we see another full retake on A, and it's the same story over and over. Everybody on Gen.G backs off to play a passive post plant, while Texture decides to start practicing his movement. Okay, but actually, he was probably looking to play top gen, but then the Sova Dart suddenly comes in, so he gets indecisive and dies for free. Gen.G can't break that man advantage, and Heretics completely turn around the map, basically off of one failed post plant on round 16 that caused Gen.G to completely regress into a typical team from APAC that can't win post plants or control their aggression. This is a haunting way to lose the map, especially considering that this same problem is arguably how they lost to Sentinels at Madrid, and arguably how every single Asian Valorant team has fallen short at every tournament. So how do Gen.G actually end up coming back from this point to defeat Heretics and win the Masters Championship? Well, you're gonna have to wait till next week for part 2, so make sure to subscribe for when that comes out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.